I was just an ordinary analyst in the Galactic Bureaucracy, sorting through endless data streams of star systems, trade routes, and the occasional interstellar dispute. My days were filled with numbers, reports, and more numbers. But that day, everything changed. The day we discovered them, humans. It started with a sudden surge in radio signals, a cacophony of noise originating from a small, unremarkable blue planet within our territory. The signals were chaotic, a mix of voices, music, and data. We had never seen anything like it. Somehow, in all our years of exploration, we had missed them, an entire sentient species living right under our noses. The discovery sent shockwaves through the bureaucracy. How had we overlooked an entire species? Theories flew across the command center. Perhaps their technological advancement was too sudden, or maybe they were masters of stealth, hiding their existence until now. But one thing was clear. Humanity had made its presence known, and they were eager to establish contact. The first thing that struck us was their audacity. These humans had already deciphered our language, or at least a rudimentary version of it, and were attempting to communicate. Their messages were direct, almost informal, yet laced with a sense of curiosity and eagerness. They were unlike any species we had encountered before. As the signals continued to pour in, the leaders of the bureaucracy scrambled to respond. There was no time for the usual protocols. Humanity's sudden emergence had thrown everything into chaos. A 100-light-year sphere around their home planet, Earth, was hastily allocated to them. It was a gesture of goodwill, an attempt to establish peaceful relations. However, this decision sparked immediate tension, as the designated area overlapped with the Humongar territory, a known militaristic and territorial species. Initial reports on humanity were mixed. Physically, they were small, far less imposing than many other species. Yet there was something undeniably strong about them, a resilience that defied their size. They hailed from a high-gravity world, yet moved with a certain clumsiness that belied their strength. Their nature was equally perplexing, optimistic, almost naively so, and yet there was a sharpness to them, a quickness to adapt and respond. Our initial interactions were awkward, to say the least. The humans seemed unbothered by our bureaucratic stiffness, often laughing off our attempts at formality. They found humor in our mistakes, and rather than taking offense, they returned our jabs with an easygoing charm that caught us off guard. They were both endearing and frustrating, a species that refused to fit into any of our preconceived categories. One of the most telling moments came when we attempted to test their patience with a few light-hearted jokes at their expense. Instead of anger or confusion, the humans responded with laughter. It was as if they were in on the joke, understanding far more than we gave them credit for. The tension that had been building since our first contact began to ease, replaced by a cautious but growing respect. But beneath the surface, there was an undercurrent of unease. We had missed them once, and there was a nagging fear that there was much more we had yet to understand about these humans. Their technology, while not as advanced as ours, was progressing at an alarming rate. Their ability to adapt and learn was unprecedented, and their seemingly casual demeanor masked a deeper, more calculating nature. As the chapter of humanity's introduction to the galaxy drew to a close, one thing was certain. They were not to be underestimated. The bureaucracy had made first contact, but the true nature of humanity and their place in the galaxy was still a mystery waiting to unfold. For now, the humans had proven themselves to be a species of paradoxes, small yet strong, clumsy yet capable, humorous yet unsettlingly unpredictable. And as we prepared for the next steps in our interaction with this new species, I couldn't shake the feeling that our galaxy was about to change in ways we could never have imagined. The humans had barely begun to settle into their new territory when they set their sights on the stars, their ambition as vast as the void itself. They expanded quickly, establishing trade routes and alliances with species across the galaxy. It wasn't long before they caught the attention of the Stellar Gospel, an avian species known for their rigid religious beliefs and immense economic power. A trade deal was struck between the two, one that would catapult humanity's economy to new heights. The Tacker, with their feathered grace and pious demeanor, were intrigued by these strange newcomers. Despite humanity's lack of wings and their clumsy movements, the Tacker found something oddly admirable in their relentless determination. The trade agreement became a cornerstone of human prosperity, with rare minerals, advanced technology, and cultural artifacts flowing between Earth and the Tacker worlds. But peace and profit are fragile things. All it took was a single misstep, a careless remark by one of humanity's leaders at a diplomatic banquet. The human, well-meaning but disastrously uninformed, compared the Tacker to a group from Earth's history, the Jehovah's Witnesses. It was an attempt at humor, a clumsy metaphor for the Tacker's fervent devotion to their faith. The Tacker were not amused. In their eyes, the comparison was a grievous insult, an affront to their very identity. The backlash was swift and severe. Within days, the Tacker stellar gospel severed all ties with humanity, declaring them godless infidels unworthy of their trade and friendship. The once flourishing economic relationship disintegrated overnight. The impact was immediate and brutal. Human markets plummeted, factories ground to a halt, and unemployment soared. The trade embargo was a catastrophe on an unprecedented scale. The Galactic Bureaucracy watched closely, expecting humanity to panic, to lash out or beg for forgiveness. Instead, the humans responded with a calmness that bordered on indifference. They issued a formal apology, of course, but there was no desperation in their tone, no groveling at the feet of the Tacker. They simply acknowledged their mistake, expressed regret, and moved on. For the next 2 decades, the humans faced the consequences of the embargo with a stoic resolve. Their economy contracted, yet they did not crumble. Instead, they adapted. They restructured their industries, found new trade partners, and focused on self-sufficiency. The Tacker watched from their distant worlds, expecting the humans to falter, but they never did. Slowly but surely, humanity rebuilt, rising from the ashes of their economic downfall like a phoenix. But humanity's quiet resilience did not go unnoticed by everyone. The Humongar Infinite Armada, a species known for their ruthless militarism and insatiable hunger for conquest, saw in humanity not weakness, but a growing threat. The Humongars were a fearsome race, towering giants with armored scales and a brutal code of honor. They had dominated their region of space for millennia, and the sudden emergence of humanity within their borders was an affront they could not tolerate. It wasn't long before the Humongars decided to act. In the shadows of the galaxy, far from prying eyes, they began to prepare for war. The Humongar Infinite Admiral, a figure of legend among his people, planned the campaign with meticulous care. Humanity, he believed, would be an easy target, a species still reeling from economic disaster, weakened and vulnerable. The Galactic Bureaucracy, always eager to avoid conflict, attempted to mediate. They urged the Humongars to reconsider, to see reason and avoid unnecessary bloodshed. But the Humongars were resolute, their pride wounded by humanity's encroachment. They wanted not just victory, but total subjugation. As the first Humongar fleets began to move toward human space, the bureaucracy braced for what they assumed would be a swift and brutal conquest. They expected humanity to crumble under the might of the Humongar Armada, just as so many others had before them. But as the days passed and the first battles loomed on the horizon, there was a growing sense of unease among the bureaucrats. Humanity had surprised them before. Who was to say they wouldn't do so again? The stage was set for a conflict that would shake the galaxy to its core. Humanity, resilient and unyielding, now faced its greatest challenge yet. And as the Humongars prepared to unleash their full might, the question on everyone's mind was the same. Would humanity survive, or would they become just another forgotten species, crushed beneath the heel of a stronger foe? The answer, it seemed, was about to be written in the stars. The declaration of war came not with a roar, but with a whisper, a chilling broadcast that rippled through human space. The Humongar Infinite Armada, towering giants of war, had decided that humanity's time in the galaxy was over. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy held its breath, watching as the Humongar fleets advanced, their arrival heralded by the dark silhouettes of battleships blotting out the stars. Humanity, once seen as an oddity by the Galactic Bureaucracy, now stood on the precipice of annihilation. Yet, The same calm that had marked their response to the Tacker embargo lingered. Orders were issued, not in panic, but with a cold precision that defied the bureaucracy's expectations. Fleets were mobilized, but not to defend the planets directly in the Humongar's path. Instead, a series of evacuation orders were quietly enacted. Billions of civilians were moved onto colossal arc ships, their destinations hidden in the deep, uncharted regions of space. The Humongars struck first. Their initial assault was overwhelming, as planet after planet fell to their relentless advance. Humanity's outer colonies, lightly defended, crumbled under the sheer force of the Humongar onslaught. The Humongar soldiers, hardened by centuries of warfare, met little resistance as they claimed world after world, their banners flying over what was once human soil. The Galactic Bureaucracy, ever the observer, anticipated humanity's collapse. But the humans had been preparing. As the Humongars pressed deeper into human space, they encountered worlds devoid of life, stripped of resources, and rendered inhospitable. Deserts where once fertile plains had existed, oceans now filled with toxins. Each planet was a hollow shell, left behind by a species that refused to give their enemies a single inch without exacting a toll. The Humongar Infinite Admiral, a veteran of countless campaigns, found himself confounded. This was not the quick victory he had envisioned. Human space was a maze of traps, where every step forward came at a cost. Guerrilla tactics bled the Humongars dry, as human strike teams launched hit-and-run assaults, targeting supply lines, ambushing small fleets, and disappearing into the blackness of space before retaliation could be mounted. In the heart of the Sol system, Earth stood as a symbol of defiance. The Humongars, frustrated by their lack of progress, shifted their strategy. If they could crush the human homeworld, the rest would follow. The decision was made. Earth would be the stage for humanity's final stand. The Humongar fleet, the largest the galaxy had ever seen, descended upon Sol with the intent to wipe humanity's cradle from existence. For days, the skies over Earth burned as the last remnants of the human defense fleet engaged in a desperate struggle. But it was not enough. The Humongar ships, with their gravitational catalysts, brought the full force of their technology to bear. The moment Earth was destroyed, it was as if the entire galaxy fell silent. The Humongars had expected a broken people, demoralized and ready to surrender. Instead, what they received was something far more dangerous. An enemy no longer bound by the fear of loss. The destruction of Earth unleashed a fury in humanity that the Humongars had not anticipated. In the days following Earth's destruction, humanity's true strength was revealed. The hidden fleets, constructed in the far reaches of space, emerged with a vengeance. Armed with advanced weaponry and fueled by a collective grief, they struck back with a ferocity that caught the Humongars off guard. The poisoned worlds that the Humongars had captured became their tombs, their armies weakened by famine and disease. The war transformed from a calculated invasion into a brutal stalemate. Human forces, now fighting with nothing to lose, pushed the Humongars back, their tactics growing increasingly ruthless. For every planet lost, 2 were retaken. For every fleet destroyed, a new one emerged from the darkness, rebuilt and reforged. The bureaucracy, watching from the sidelines, began to question their previous assumptions. Humanity was not merely surviving. They were adapting, evolving with every strike, every battle. The final blow came when humanity, through a coordinated series of strikes, shattered the Humongar supply lines. The Infinite Admiral, his forces depleted and his empire on the brink of collapse, had no choice but to retreat. What had begun as a war of annihilation ended in a desperate struggle for survival, with the once mighty Humongar armada limping back to its borders, pursued by a relentless enemy. As the dust settled, the galaxy took stock of what had transpired. The Humongars, once feared and revered, were now a shadow of their former selves. Humanity, scarred but unbroken, stood as a testament to resilience in the face of overwhelming odds. Yet, as the chapter closed on the Humongar War, the question remained, what kind of species would humanity become, now that they had survived the unthinkable? The answer would not be found in the ashes of war, but in the uncertain peace that followed. The ruins of Earth smoldered in the cold void, a monument to the Humongar's brutality. But amidst the wreckage, the seeds of humanity's vengeance had already taken root. The war, which had begun as a desperate defense, was now an offensive aimed at not just survival, but total victory. The Humongars, once feared throughout the galaxy, were now hunted. Humanity had become a force of reckoning, relentless in their pursuit. Admiral Marcus Harlan stood at the helm of the UNS Retribution, one of the titanic warships humanity had hidden away in the far reaches of space. His eyes, once filled with the light of Earth's oceans, now held only the cold determination of a man who had lost everything and found a purpose in the ashes. Beside him, his trusted lieutenant, Evelyn Drake, monitored the final preparations for the last push into Humongar space. "Admiral, the fleets are in position. All systems green," Evelyn reported, her voice steady despite the weight of what was to come. They had pushed the Humongars back to their homeworld, a feat thought impossible just months before. Now, it was time to end this war. "Good," Harlan replied, his tone as icy as the void outside. "Today, we finish what they started." The UNS Retribution led the charge, flanked by 100 human warships, each one bristling with the advanced weaponry that had been developed in secret, far from the eyes of the Galactic Bureaucracy. These ships, born from the agony of Earth's destruction, carried the hopes of a species determined to carve out its place in the galaxy. As they approached the Humongar homeworld, the once mighty armada lay in shambles, their ships scattered like debris in a storm. The Humongars, their resources depleted and their morale shattered, could do little more than watch as the human fleet descended upon them. In the heart of the Humongar capital, the Infinite Admiral, a being who had once commanded respect and fear, now faced the grim reality of his empire's fall. The Humongars had underestimated humanity, seeing them as a lesser species. Now, with their fleets in ruins and their worlds devastated, they understood the cost of that arrogance. The humans, driven by a need for justice and revenge, had become something far more dangerous than the Humongars had ever anticipated. They were no longer the optimists who had once laughed in the face of galactic ridicule. They were survivors, warriors, and they were here to end the war on their terms. Harlan's fleet broke through the final lines of Humongar defense with terrifying efficiency. Each volley of cannon fire, each surgical strike, was a message. There would be no mercy. Yet, despite the overwhelming force, the Admiral knew that complete annihilation was not the goal. Humanity's strength was not just in their ability to destroy, but in their capacity to rebuild, to offer a path forward even to their enemies. The Humongar Command Center, a massive structure that had once symbolized power and dominance, now lay at the mercy of the UNS Retribution. Harlan opened a channel to the Infinite Admiral, who appeared on the screen, his once proud demeanor reduced to a shadow of defeat. "Admiral Harlan," the Humongar leader croaked, his voice filled with a weariness that had accumulated over centuries of war. "You have won. What are your terms?" Harlan's eyes bore into the Humongars, not with hatred, but with a cold, calculating gaze. "Surrender your fleet, your worlds, and accept our terms of peace. There will be reparations, and you will never again threaten humanity. Refuse, and we will finish what you started." The Infinite Admiral hesitated, his pride warring with the reality of his situation. But he knew the choice was an illusion. His people were broken, their empire in ruins. "We accept," he finally said, the words tasting of ash. With the war's end, the galaxy held its breath once more, but this time in the aftermath of humanity's rise. The Humongars, once the terror of the stars, were now a humbled race, bound by the terms of a peace they had never anticipated. The Galactic Bureaucracy, too, had been forced to recognize humanity's place among the stars, not as a curious anomaly, but as a power to be reckoned with. As the UNS Retribution turned away from the Humongar homeworld, leaving behind the shattered remnants of an empire, Harlan allowed himself a moment of reflection. The war had taken everything from him, from his people, but it had also forged them into something new. Humanity had proven that they could not only survive the unthinkable, but thrive in its wake. And now, as they began the long process of rebuilding, the galaxy wondered. What other surprises did this strange, resilient species have in store? The end of the war was not the end of their story, but the beginning of a new chapter, one that would reshape the galaxy forever.